Hello and welcome to Limerick Post Show. I'm Sean Finnan, and today I have Sports News Ireland reporter James Roulston Mooney to talk about the O's. Good morning, James. How are you doing?
Not too bad. How are you, Sean?
I'm doing very well, thank you, James. James, you spent a lot of your time over the past few months reporting about various news, sports news, and part of that has been the European Championships. What have you made of the European Championships so far, and what have you been most impressed with?
Well, there's been a lot of surprises, a lot of teams as well that have gone out that have performed well. So I think overall it's been a really, really good tournament. It's probably been the best Euros that I can remember.
Mm.
That goes back to 2008. But it's been a really good tournament. There were some great matchups in the group stages, and when I got to the knockout stages, I think it just went to the next level.
Mm.
The most surprising team has probably Switzerland.
Mm.
After sort of trudging through the group stage, maybe
Yeah,
not
because
the top gear until
it
the
was
final
very
game.
impressive. It was like the Wales game was probably it was odd because if you compare like how both of those teams progressed in the tournament, it kind of odd that they were like so deadlocked when Switzerland were able to like take advantage of a French team, but a Welsh team got rolled over by the Danish team.
Yeah, and I think in Switzerland's case that's down to the form of Seferovic in front of goal, because
Mm.
he had a few chances against Wales, and he didn't put them away. I can't remember if he was the one who scored, but they brought on Gavranovic then at the end. He was really good for them throughout the tournament, coming on
Yeah.
as a late sub, and he almost won it for them, but then it mirrors the France game. That very game mirrors the France game, because against France you had Seferovic on form. They were putting the right balls into him,
Yeah.
catching him, getting him in for headers up against Longley in the first half, which
Yeah.
was a complete mismatch.
Yeah, and
And
it was Severovic up against like a very untested back three by the French, which didn't last long. He didn't even make it to the second half.
an untested back three for the first time they played back three in a long, long while. I can't remember the last time France played a back three with Clement Longley, who was far from spectacular this season for Barcelona, and Fresno, Kimpembe, and Varane. Varane is probably the best of the three in there, but Kimpembe's he's always got a mistake in him.
Yeah,
and you could see that all three of them, for Seferovic's two goals, all three of them made a mistake. So.
Yeah, and so Switzerland obviously went out to Spain. Spain has has been as well a very lottery team where you don't know what's going to come out of the draw each time they go up against somebody else. Because like in the first game against Sweden, it was very blunt and very Spanish. But as we progressed, they had the Croatia game where they kind of broke their shell and probably had to go for it. And we've seen what they can do when they actually have to go for it, when they had to beat Slovakia and they trounced Slovakia. What do you expect of them coming up against Italy now? They're like a totally different outfit for what they've faced so far.
Well, you can tell that I'm expecting Laporte and Garcia. If I see Laporte and Torres, it'll confuse me a little bit, because you'll have Aymeric Laporte out of position then if he's playing alongside Pau Torres, and that'll put them at a disadvantage against probably the favourites to win it right now, based on the last four. So Laporte and Garcia, and that'll give them stability. Garcia has looked okay. He's looked pretty solid in the games that he's played. He didn't play too well for Manchester City this season, but he looked good beside Laporte, who he knows anyway. And they'll have their fullbacks pushing high, of course, with Jordi Alba. Azpilicueta sit back a little bit, but their midfield is definitely the best part of that, because you have Busquets, who is obviously magnificent. He's a Rolls Royce.
And past, he's been there since they won the World Cup in 2010.
He's a mainstay. You have Coke, who is a living Atletico Madrid legend, an active Atletico Madrid legend, who can flood the box, and you have Pedri, who can flood the box as well, and also provide that that passing quality, and he gets in over Thiago from Liverpool because of that, because he has that extra ability. But the problem with them is their front three. They don't really have a goal scorer. Gerard Moreno is probably the most prolific based on the past season, and he has performed at times in the Euros, but more recently against Switzerland, he didn't really offer anything when he came on. And Morata is, I think, their most prolific option based on his international record. But Morata, the thing is that he is a good striker. He can score goals, but the problem is that he will have maybe 5 chances in one game, 5 clear-cut chances in one game, and he might score 1.
Yeah, and that's a huge test of confidence from Enrique that has stayed with him for so long. That like he does have the goal scoring Moreno, who's top scorer in the Liga, but he's continued to stick with Morata and has sometimes paid off, and most of the time is not. But it is a huge test of confidence that Enrique obviously sees Morata as the tipping point, or like the front tip of the Spanish team. And
I think he sees him as a bit of a support striker for the other two wingers, whereas his hold-up play and his general playmaking is very good. It's probably why the top teams sign him so often, and that's probably why Juventus fans do really like him. But
because he's like slipping in Ronaldo, and one of the major players of Juventus that has really shown in the Italian time so far in Federico Chiesa.
Yeah, so he's a fantastic player, and his work, Chiesa as well, coming off the bench for Italy is similar to him coming off the bench for Juventus. Sometimes obviously he starts a lot at the left wing back role, but whenever he comes off the bench like he did in the Coppa Italia final this year, he made an instant impact, and I think that's clear as well in Mancini's Italy, that he's a guy you can put on with a lot of confidence, and he's going to do something.
Italy coming into the semi-final obviously have the loss of Spinazzola. What do you see Emerson filling his boots, and how do you expect how well he'll do well in Spinazzola's role?
Well, Emerson is his third choice at Chelsea, but he's usually first choice for Italy. He plays a lot for Italy, so I think it will be solid at the very least. It'll be a solid replacement at the very least, because he knows what to do. He knows what to do in that role. But whether it's going to be the quality of Spinazzola and that extra attacking flair, the way when they play with 5 up front sometimes, whenever Spinazzola rushes and Barella comes in as well, they may not be able to have that have that front 5 to be as effective as it would have been with Spinazzola. But I'm not sure if that will be a telling factor just yet against Spain, because Emerson is very good defensively, and he's coming up against Ferran Torres, who likes to cut inside. And if he sat back and worked on Torres, I think he'd do a pretty good job. But the plan is probably to continue with the same tactics and keep Di Lorenzo back and push the left back forward.
And by the time this goes out, one of Spain or Italy will be in the final, and will be facing one of Denmark or England. And England are very, as Irish fans, we always have one eye on England and how well they do. How well do you think they can do in the last 2 games of this tournament? Given
well, England came into this with a lot of people having their eye on them, because Portugal looked weaker. Germany were far weaker than they were in the last Euros, and obviously even they haven't really progressed from their disappointing 2018. It seems to be a stagnant 3 years for them. But just that raised their stock a little bit, and then with Croatia, who was in the same group as them, declining as well, it put them further up the chart. But definitely the losses of France, the shock loss to Switzerland, and the matchup of Italy and Belgium has helped them a lot. And of course, coming first, granting them into the easier side of the draw, shall we say, against Germany, who, as I said, haven't really been on form since the qualifiers for the World Cup. Sweden, who are a very good defensive side, and they have some good attacking players in Emil Forsberg and Alexander Isaac, but they don't exactly have that connection to supply them constantly. And they face Denmark, which is definitely their toughest task yet, and Denmark are definitely deserving of this semi-final spot. You know, Kasper Yeomans switched to a 3-4-3 after losing Eriksson in such a crazy circumstance has paid off really well. Denmark have looked really lively in every single one of their games. They've looked like they can attack from anywhere, which is important against England, because I'll use the Germany game for example, where they played 7 defensive-minded players in the outfield 10, and they had Shaw and Trippier. They had Shaw and Trippier. You know what I'm trying to say? I'm just trying to get that out. They had Shaw and Trippier defending against Kimmich and Gosens, who were probably the main threat for Germany. But see, Gosens had fantastic performance against Portugal, who usually tend to play 6 at the back whenever they're not on the ball. So to break down to 6 was huge. So they really needed the defensive brilliance of Shaw that he had this season, and obviously Trippier is defensive-minded fullback that really suits his club coach Diego Simeone's tactics, and it worked for Southgate, and they shut them down and were able to bring on Grealish after Bukayo Saka had tired out their, shall we say, weak axis of Ginter and Hummels, and Grealish and Shaw were able to exploit that axis and find balls for Sterling and Kane. And I think that will be important against Denmark, because they have Stieg Larsson, and they have Larsson and Joachim Mail, who has been fantastic. He's one of the Atlanta players who have really taken this tournament by storm.
Yeah.
And
not just been peppered in one team, but been peppered in so many of the international teams, and have done surprisingly well. No, maybe not surprisingly well for fans of Atlanta or people who know those players, but it really Atlanta players really stepping up and putting a stamp on this isn't just a Serie A or Italian job. It is a European job.
I think it's a testament to Gasperini's work at Atalanta. You can see footprints of him all across the tournament. It really is. If you have to say, it would be his tournament. His great success story, having all these players on an international stage, a whole level above club level, who have impressed those who've watched Atalanta, but to go a level above and do the same thing, you know, Remo Freuler, Joachim Mayo, Matteo Pessina, Ruslan Malinovsky. You have all these players who have really impressed, and that's because of tactics that they're using, and also the abilities that they have that Gasperini has brought into, like Pessina flooding the box, Mela being that constant attacking threat on the left, Gosens as well from Germany being that constant attacking threat on the left. There's just a lot of quality in the sides.
And there's a lot of quality in these semi-finals. But James, who do you expect will come out on top come the weekend? To risk your credibility of a.
Who do I think will win?
Yeah. Not an easy job, but who would your best guesstimate be?
It's going to be tough. There is a chance that England can win, because Sterling has the possibility to get behind an old defence, and you have the power and strength of Kane. But you can compare that to Lukaku, because Lukaku has that and speed on top of Kane, and he was marshalled really
coming up from behind
him. He was marshalled really well, and I think the main attacking threat for England will be Sterling, but I think Italy will pull through just about. I think both teams will play really well and will show why they're in the final. But I think Italy will just about get through 2-1.
Oh, so James, thank you very much for coming on the show, and hopefully it does end up 2-1 Italy, or your career as starting off on a lie and a misplaced prediction. Thank you.
I just don't want to say the
Okay.
other one.
Thank you very much, James.